It is national, National Cup Finals weekend in Tala. In the men's final tomorrow at 6 o'clock, we've got Neptune against Tralee Warriors, and then on Sunday at the top tier, and the women's final is UCC Glanmire against DCU Mercy. Delighted to welcome Timmy McCarthy back to the show, former captain and coach of the Ireland team, Blue Demons legend, of course. Timmy, how are you getting on?
I'm good, Owen. How are you?
Yeah, very well. National Cup Finals weekend then, is this something that brings back great memories, horrible memories, or what's the first thing that comes to mind?
A combination of both, actually. I missed the first final actually in 1984, which was played in the Oblit through injury. And then 85 was the Neptune Stadium, and probably the game that set the whole National Cup sort of mythology up and, excitement. It was a packed Neptune Stadium. I probably 5,000 or 6,000 people back in the days when health and safety wasn't as severe as it is now. And Neptune beat us by a point when they scored on the buzzer in a very controversial game where we led all the game and we were actually leading by a point, but there was a mistake in the score sheet. So with 20 seconds to go, we went for a score, even though we were a point up and could have held the ball. They stole the ball. Terry Strickland got a brilliant steal, went coast to coast and made a layup. 93-91 on the scoreboard. Then they realised there was a mistake, so it was 92-91. They got the cup. We lost. We went home with our heads hanging. They were delighted. Basketball was buzzing, and the cup took off from there. So mixed memories, as you say, but great competition. Great competition.
I'm happy you brought that up to me, because I may or may not have been flicking through Hanging from the Rafters last night on that 85 Cup final. It's not an easy memory for you, is it? Like, I mean, it's. I guess you're giving us a kind of a jovial enough recounting of it, but at the time, this was a massive scandal from a Blue Demons perspective, wasn't it? The fact that the score was essentially wrong and that your approach to the game had been altered by it.
Oh, completely. And it's as time goes on, it doesn't get easier. You just accept it, because obviously you can't change it. But it was a big issue for us at the time, because two things were relevant that year. We were the kingpins at that point in time, and Neptune were coming. They were a young team, and they were coming, and it really set them up. That victory set Neptune up, and the players did nothing. The players just played. It was fantastic players. They had two Americans, Ray Smith and Terry Strickland. We had Dale Roberts and Jasper McElroy. So between McElroy and Smith, you were the two best Americans probably ever to come to this country, and the stadium was packed. And it reminded me a bit, like the USSR American 72 Olympic Games, where, there was again controversy at the end of that game in Munich. The Americans lost it by a point and, felt as bad, I suppose, about their defeat as we did about our defeat. And it was controversial. 3 weeks later, actually, when we played them in the league decider, and again, they scored on the buzzer to beat us by a point to win the league. But there was no issue. It was a fair result. They got the score on the buzzer, so we had no complaints that. But as time goes on, the memory of it, still hurts. The fact that it was the first television or cup final televised, even though it wasn't live, it was recorded. And what was ironic was the Friday night we played them in the league decider, RT showed the recorded version of the cup final on the Saturday. So not alone did we have, this fear on Friday night after losing the league decider, we then had that on television. And so for people who didn't see it live, they were reminding us all that weekend. So it was a tough week for us in Cork, but we recovered. The following year we won the cup, and it just was a brilliant time for basketball, and we were lucky and fortunate to be part of it. But with any sport, come highlights and lowlights, and that definitely was one of our lowlights in my career in the Demons.
You make the USA-USSR 1972 comparison there, but people don't realise that Neptune Blue Demons was a way worse rivalry than that experienced in the Cold War, I suspect, Timmy. And Kieran Shannon even put it in his book that the 1985 Terry Strickland steal, which was right in front of your face, I think, wasn't it? It happens right in front of you. The pass was going to you. That was basketball's version of the Seamus Darby moment.
Okay, Owen, you didn't have to remind me the pass was coming to me, because I was getting set up to hit the winning basket, and Strickland long arm stretched out and took it from me. It really was a Cold War in the best intentions, because we both lived, like in the same part of town. We're both in the north side of Cork City. The clubs were probably a mile apart from each other in reality. We played in the Parochial Hall at the top of Spring Valley Drive. They played at Neptune Stadium at the bottom. So it really was rivalry at its most intense. And the fact that, you know, both teams were very successful, and as I said earlier, they were coming. You know, who would have known if we had won that game? Would they have come? You know, you just never know as history would unfold. But it was intense rivalry. It was, you know, the two best teams in the country for many, many years. Like in my career, I have 3 National League wins. I have 8 runners-up, and they have 7 wins. I have 7 runners-up to them. You know, where there was always nip and tuck between us, a basketball, you know, going in for us or going in for them in that sense. But it really was intense rivalry. And what was brilliant about it was the fact that, you know, we played against each other very hard. We played in on international teams. I was very friendly with Tom Wilkinson and still am to this day, who was one of their stars at that point in time. So it was neighbours playing against neighbours. It was families divided amongst families. You know, it really was a civil war in a basketball sense rather than a Cold War. And we were fortunate in that era to be part of that show.
And Timmy, just when you spoke there about losing in 85 because of the scoreboard, because I'm sure you would have did different things in the game. You would have held the ball, you would have did different plays, you wouldn't have went for the score, all of these things. Thinking back now, years on, I often wonder, like, when people lose games like that, does it get any easier? I'm sure it maybe gets easier in a small sense, but do you always think that was the one that got away, or does it always play in your mind? I know you said you went on and won the following year.
It always actually plays on your mind, because the reality was we had, back then in basketball, if you were fouled in the bonus, you got a 1-and-1. You get 2 free throws now, but you got a 1-and-1 then. So 1 free throw, if you made the first, you got the second. And within the last 2 minutes, Dale Roberts, our American, had 4 of those opportunities, 4 1-and-1s. To change the scoreboard correctly. It actually happened with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go. The whole controversy evolved. And it just shows you, actually, the fact that, you know, what's that, nearly 40 years later, I can still tell you exactly when it happened. 2 minutes and 32 seconds. Doesn't obviously indicate I've forgotten this really in any way. But what happened was Thomas Sullivan shot a 3-point attempt and missed. And Ray Smith got the rebound and put it in. And we were 89-82 up. And they changed the score to 89-85 instead of 89-84. And I can remember saying to the coach at the time, the scoreboard is wrong. You know, we actually are ahead, even though I was playing. And he kept going to the bench for the next number of minutes, saying the scoreboard is wrong, the scoreboard is wrong. Dale Roberts missed 4 1-and-1s, which would have changed the scoreboard. So it was 91 all with 29 seconds to go. And at that time, it was a 30-second shot clock. So we could have kept the ball. And the only thing they could have done was foul us and put us to the free throw line, and give us a chance to, again, change the scoreboard. But because we were told it was 91-90 piece, we went for the score. And Strickland got a brilliant steal because John Cooney was our point guard, great point guard. He passed the ball a couple times to the right, and I was on the left. And as I snuck in, Strickland was coming out. I went in behind Strickland, and I hoped that Cooney made a fake. And as Strickland came out, passed it into me, and I'd have been wide open. But John just flicked the ball automatically, and Strickland got it, and he was just gone. And despite John's great efforts, you know, Strickland was just so athletic at that point in time. And it was a brilliant score from their point of view. It was brilliant for basketball for everybody else except us. You know, we were the only people that didn't appreciate what it did, because when it appeared on television 3 weeks later in the recorded version, there was so much excitement, guys. There was so much, you know, interest in it, obviously from the media at that point as well, that, you know, the following year, RT decides to show the Cup live. And that really set the Cup off in a different atmosphere over the next 20 years at that point in time.
Absolutely. It's that sort of rivalry as well kind of was such an intriguing storyline for everybody trying to tap into it, even for people outside of Cork. This weekend then, Timmy, we start tomorrow the men's National Cup final, Neptune against Tralee Warriors. I assume it's pretty easy to tell who you might be rooting for in this one with your Tralee connection and the fact obviously they're up against Neptune.
Completely. There's no doubt in that. You know, it's I mean, I'd love to see Galways win this. I really would, because I think Tralee have you know, really wanted the Cup for a long time. It's a long time since they won the Cup. They're better than Neptune. I mean, you know, Tralee are actually better than Neptune at this point in time. And I would just love to see. I have a lot of great friends from my time in Tralee. It was an incredible time down there, winning the Super League with them. So I have people like, you know, Gat Carey, Morris Casey, John Tian, and guys like that, Ricardo Leonard. So I really would love to see Tralee do this, but it won't be easy. This will be a very tough game. Neptune are tough in cup finals. We talked about 85, but they're a tough team. When they get to cup finals, they're really dogged, and they have a lot of talented players. But if I have a choice, definitely I would love to see Tralee get over the line on this. And also for my buddy Kieran Donaghy, who, when I was coaching down there, was a 10-year-old kid who came to every training session. There's a photograph actually, of us after winning the league, and the night we were getting the trophy. And Kieran Donaghy's at my side as a 10-year-old kid, and who would have thought that all those years later he'd have gone on to do so many great things, both on the football field and obviously on the basketball court.
He was like, I've read up that he's a kid who's coming to all the training sessions, almost acts as a ball boy at your training sessions.
Yeah, and getting in the way at times, just getting in the way. You're trying to have this serious conversation, and this smiling kid is looking at you, and you're trying to, my own son also, Brian, my second son, traveled to a lot of the games. He was 8 at the time, so himself and Kieran would have been, in the middle of stuff, and you're here trying to be serious and, focused on the thing, and these two smiling kids are looking up at you. But he always had a love for basketball, and obviously that is shown in his career to date in the game.
You paint such a vibrant picture of that Cork rivalry that existed in the 1980s. Like, how did that compare with, say, the rivalry that you would have had as Tralee coach with Killarney in the 90s then? Because I remember going to games in the Gleneagle in the 2000s when Donaghy was starting to play. There were electric nights, but I assume back in the 90s they were even better.
Yeah, it was as intense. It really was intense. I didn't realise that actually, Owen, until I went to coach Tralee, the intensity of the rivalry, because in the 80s, Killarney were always the more dominant team than Tralee. So therefore the rivalry didn't seem as intense from across the county bounds. But when I went to coach Tralee, it was phenomenal. And there's a game that stands out, was the first league game we played Christmas week, where we were going into the game and we were 6-2 at the top of the league, and they were 5-3. So basically, if we won, we were going to push them further down the table, and if they won, they were going to join us at the top of the table. And it went to 3 periods of extra time. It started at 8:15 in St. Brendan's, which you talk about, and it finished at 12:05. We won it after the 3rd period of extra time, even though we played it 3 periods of extra time, but only 1 American. We were 27 down in the game in the first half. We were being blown out in the first half, and we recovered and equalised close to the end of the game, and then won it in overtime. So that night I left Killarney with my wife Anna and my 3 kids, and realised the rivalry here is almost as intensive as in Cork. But obviously, when you're a player in the Cork rivalry, guys, it just feels different because you're a player, and obviously you're from the locality in that sense. So there was 20 miles of difference between Killarney and Tralee, which gave it a slightly different rivalry. There was, sort of 20 yards in the difference between Neptune and Demons at times between some of the players. So it was just a little bit more intense in Cork, but marginal.
And Timmy, just as we're speaking about Kieran Donaghy there, obviously we know what he's done in basketball and in GA. And this question I just thought about last night, just knowing that I was going to speak to you. I play GA, and a lot of our coaches would often reference to basketball quite a bit. And I was talking to some of the girls last night, and they said that, we used to actually play before they go out. So they'd actually go in and sort of train like basketball to make them a bit more aware and of your surroundings and your plays and all of these things, and then go out to the pitch to play GA. So I suppose what I wanted to ask you, how far has this been happening, or how beneficial is it to sort of intertwine the two?
Well, the way GA has developed, it's very beneficial to intertwine the two, because GA, back in the 70s was played, originally with the foot, and then it became carried, sort of demonstrated you could play it like basketball, and then they changed the rule about hand passing goals, but hand passing is a critical part of GA now. So that's a critical part of basketball, obviously, passing. So I would say to any GA coach, I've coached St. Bridget's last year here in Kiltoom to win the Roscommon Senior Football Championship. And, you've got to be able to handle the ball. Fundamentally, you've got to be able to handle the ball. You've got to have good lateral vision, and that's what, a guy like Donnie and Liam McHale previously had. When they got the ball, their ability to pass the ball was exceptional compared to their teammates at times. And their ability to see, both left and right laterally with lateral vision was exceptional. So actually, I would say that, you should incorporate basketball type activities in GA, because the ball is in your hands so much now, and there's so much hand passing that it's a great advantage for players to be able to, understand the importance of, making that pass. Because one thing we talk about in basketball, a simple thing is lead the pass. So if the player's going forward, you should pass ahead of them so they don't have to break stride. Sometimes you see in GA that doesn't actually happen. The guys have to stop their stride because the pass isn't as precise. So that's a little small example of how basketball can be a big advantage to GA players. And I know Dublin over the years have used Mark Ingle, who's coaching this weekend for Mercy, and other clubs, other counties have used basketball people. So it definitely intertwines right now, much more than it did back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, the Mark Ingle element of that Dublin team was fascinating over the last little while. I mean, really took them to a whole other level in 2017. Like on a purely basketball level, then how highly regarded is this guy as a coach going back through the years? Because there's obviously a reason why Jim Gavin brings him in before 17. He is one of the best around.
One of the best of all time. I mean, what he has done, with Mercy has been incredible. Like he set the club up with Annette. They set the club up, and the success they have brought has been phenomenal. He went to Manchester. He coached professionally in England. The only Irish coach ever to be brought across to the UK to coach professionally. An exceptional coach, an exceptional knowledge of the game, but an exceptional ability to get so much out of the players. And I think what he brought to Dublin, and when you watch Dublin at that point in time, he brought the concept of space, creating space. I mean, I was reading the other day, there's a new coaching board that, they're talking about GA, that now coaches have a board that they can demonstrate different things. And, it's a handheld one. They were showing it on some media recently. And that's been part of basketball for so long. I mean, that's what, Ingle brought to Dublin. He brought a tactical awareness. He brought an understanding of when you make the pass as a player, you've got to move instead of just standing, which many GA players naturally would have done. They'd have passed the ball. I'd have passed the Ashling and watch what she did. He brought into Dublin that when you pass the Ashling, you move off the ball. And, in basketball and in GA, okay, and in any sport really, the person who moves off the ball tends to be the person who gets the best options in. But that movement creates problems for defense because, if I pass it to Ashling and make a move, when my defender can't double team Ashling, they've got to decide, do I go and double team Ashling or do I go off and follow Timmy? And the problem is then that gives you space. And as a forward, when I coach GA and when I coach basketball, I've always talked about creating space. That's the key as you want as a forward. As a defender, you want to take away space. So they're the type of things that Mark Ingle would have brought in abundance, but an exceptional coach. And himself and Mark Scanlon, who's he coaching against in the women's final over the weekend, two brilliant coaches. I mean, phenomenal success in the game, two real students of the game. But Mark would be, Mark Ingle would genuinely be, one of the best of all time in the game.
And when you look at the Glanmire and Mercy rivalry over the last couple of years, I think the two of them have finished top in the league over 4 of the last 6 seasons. So, I mean, this is a real heavyweight clash on Sunday. How do you see this one panning out?
Well, it's very interesting, this one, in the sense of the styles. I mean, like Glanmire are high scoring, okay? So they have a high scoring team. They're averaging, in the cup so far, mid-90s in points per game. So they're a high scoring team. Mercy this year, for some reason, are a low scoring team. They're only averaging, mid-60 points. So they're very contrasting in styles. As you say, their success is unrivaled in women's basketball. What's interesting here is Glanmire's last cup victory was in 2017, and in 18 they were going for 5 in a row, and Mercy actually beat them. So there's a little bit of history between these teams. I think Glanmire's scoring will be a big asset to them in this game. I also think that their American, Carrie Shepherd, is an exceptional American player, point guard, okay, real big, big scorer when she wants to score, dominates the game. And then Captain Anya McKenna, the local player, who shares the point guard role with Shepherd, big scorer as well. So I just think that they'll have too much scoring from Mercy. Mercy, dogged, strong, determined, defensively brilliant team. I mean, won the semi-final against Wildcats, where, even though COVID had affected all their preparations in advance of that, it was their defense won it for them because Wildcats were playing really well, but Mercy just defensively shut Wildcats down at the key parts of the game, which caused Wildcats problems. So it'll be the defensive setup of Mercy against the offensive threat of Glanmire. And on this one, I'm going to go for my Corkonians, and Glanmire will be successful, I believe. this time for their 8th cup victory if they win it. I mean, their record is fascinating. They won 3 in a row, and then a few years later they won 4 in a row. So they're now looking to start another run, I have no doubts, in Glanmire. So I tip them to win this one.
And then I appreciate, Timmy, that there is a difference between saying Tralee Warriors are a better team than Neptune and actually predicting them to win. But are you saying that they are going to beat Neptune tomorrow night?
Well, what the question was earlier on, like, who do I love to see win? And it's Garvey's, right? Okay. As regards the game itself, it's fascinating because Neptune have a problem with Tralee's matchup. Tralee just have bigger size on the inside. With Ross, the Croatian, and they've been resting him. Tralee have focused on the cup. They've lost a couple of league games recently, but it's all about the cup. John Dowling, the coach, has been focused on winning the cup. That's been the big message coming out of Tralee from my contacts in Tralee. So, their guard clicks the exceptional guard, but Neptune can match up to him, because Neptune have, people like Roy Downey, so they can match up at the guard spot. But it's on the inside with Rossa and guys like Donaghy, whose size give Tralee a big advantage. And then you have like Sullivan and Quigley, who are streaky scorers and who can actually hit it for Tralee. So I just believe the matchup for Tralee gives Neptune a problem. But Neptune are streaky. Neptune are run and gun. Neptune want an open court game, and if they get in the open court and get at it, then they'll cause Tralee problems. So I think this will be a fascinating cup final for a number of reasons. First of all, both teams haven't won in a long time. Okay, it's nearly 10 years since Neptune won. I think 2013, 2007 since Tralee. So it's a long time for both of these teams not to have won a cup. So the pressure is enormous on both of them to win it. The desire is enormous on both of them to win it. That's the first thing. The second thing is they're really talented individually. They're both talented individually teams. Colin O'Reilly, the player coach in Neptune, okay, was an exceptional player in his prime. He's now at the back end of his prime, obviously, but he's capable of hitting big numbers for Neptune, and I think that's very important for them. Roy Downey, an exceptional point guard, but I just think that the run and gun in Neptune has limitations, and I just look in Tralee and I just like what they have on the floor. But the big secret for Tralee will be Kieran Donaghy. And don't forget this, it's not only 5 or 6 days since a Cork team, denied Donaghy in the Munster Club Championship, right? Okay, so he's obviously hurting after that because it was a big defeat for Stacks last weekend against the Bars. And he doesn't want another defeat to a Cork team in another prestigious event a week later. He was phenomenal for them in the semi-final. Not in scoring, he scored 2 points, but his control, his organisation, when they were really struggling, he picked up a couple of rebounds. He got a defensive charge. He made 1 or 2 nice passes. So he'll be vital to Tralee's ambitions to win this weekend. And, it's just set up for a brilliant cup final. If both of them perform, Tralee will win. If Tralee are slightly off and Neptune perform, Neptune will win. If Neptune are slightly off and Tralee perform, obviously Tralee will win. But to me, I just believe, if I was sitting as a coach, who would I like to be coaching? Not from a point of view of rivalry, but as regards talent, I just believe Tralee have just a little bit more in the edge. In the depth, they have more depth, and they have a bit more, I believe, of variety on the floor. And that's Owen and Ashling why I give them a slight edge. I don't think it'll be a massive blowout, but I do give them the edge. I think that they just have enough weapons that if one weapon isn't firing, they have other weapons that can fire in the final. And that's what you need when you get to a cup final. You need, weapons firing. You need people to step up because it's a big environment. It's televised. It's a full house in the stadium in Dublin. And as I said, you have history. You have history of the fact that they haven't won in so long, and they're two clubs that, expect to be in the winning of events, regularly. So it's a big game for both teams. Tralee just have the edge from where I sit looking at it.
Very interesting. We've had 5 Dublin winners in a row in the Men's National Cup. That's not going to be the case, obviously, this weekend. Just one more to put to you before we let you go. Shane01 has been in touch in our comments asking, who does Timmy support in the NBA and who's his prediction to win it this year? And they said in block caps, Downtown.
Okay, so the team I'd support currently, Boston Celtics were my team all my life, so I'd be a Celtics fan, right? But I love the way Golden State play. I just love the way Golden State play. I think if Brooklyn stay fit and sort out the Kyrie Irving situation, I think Brooklyn with KD, Kevin Durant, have enough weapons to win it. So Brooklyn or Milwaukee are the two I would go for at this point in time. But again, if you pick me, who I'd like to see win, I'd like to see Brooklyn, because I just think Durant deserves a ring, other than the ones he got obviously with Golden State, because at that stage he was with Steph Curry. I just love to see Durant in this environment take a team like Brooklyn and bring them to the NBA. So Brooklyn or Milwaukee, my preference for Brooklyn if they stay fit.
Right, okay, it's going to be very interesting, particularly in the East over the next couple of months. Timmy, always great chatting to you. Thanks a million for that, and enjoy the basketball this weekend.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Ash. Thanks a
million, Timmy.
Cheers. Timmy McCarthy there, Irish basketball legend, former captain and coach with Ireland, Blue Demons legend, of course, there. And the fixtures, the main two fixtures this weekend, was obviously a heap of other ones as well. The men's final, Neptune against Tralee tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And then the women's final is Glanmire against ECU Mercy at 5:20 on Sunday. So it's going to be a busy weekend in Tala